I'm marrying you minus the scar. Fiancé's cruel words revealed hidden prenup. Hey everyone, welcome back to Reddit Bit. Imagine this. You're just weeks away from your dream wedding. The venue is booked, the dress is fitted, and you're ready to start your life with the person you love. There's just one problem. Your fiancé can't stop making comments about the scar on your neck. The scar you got when you were 12 years old, saving your brother's life. This isn't just another story about a bad relationship. It's about the invisible line between loving someone and trying to change them. It's about family pressure, societal expectations, and the courage it takes to walk away from someone who can't accept you as you are. As you listen to Rebecca's journey, ask yourself, how much of yourself would you change to be loved? And is it really love if it comes with conditions? Let's dive in.
I never thought my engagement would become a nightmare because of something I've lived with since I was 12. But here I am, 3 weeks before what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, questioning everything I thought I knew about love. My name is Rebecca Mitchell. I'm 29, working as a pediatric physical therapist in Boston, and I have a 4-inch scar that runs from just below my right ear down to my collarbone. Most days, I barely notice it anymore. It's been part of me for so long that I forget it's even there, until someone reminds me. The scar came from a camping trip when I was 12. My little brother Tommy wandered off and fell into a ravine. I climbed down to help him, but during the rescue, I slipped and caught my neck on a jagged rock. 17 stitches later, I had a permanent reminder of the day I saved my brother's life. My parents always called it my badge of courage. I met Andrew Parker 2 years ago at a hospital fundraiser. He's handsome, successful, works as a corporate attorney at a prestigious firm in downtown Boston, and comes from what you'd call old money in Massachusetts. His family owns property on Cape Cod, and his mother Caroline is known for hosting the most exclusive summer parties. When Andrew proposed last Christmas Eve with a gorgeous 3-carat diamond ring, I thought I had found my happily ever after. The first comment came during our engagement photo shoot in Boston Public Garden. The photographer was positioning us for a side profile shot when Andrew whispered, "Maybe we should do shots from your left side instead." You know, the good side. I froze but brushed it off. Everyone has preferences about how they look in photos, right? Then came the bridal shopping trip with my mom, my sister, and Andrew's mother. I fell in love with this gorgeous off-shoulder gown that made me feel like a princess. When I stepped out of the dressing room, my mom teared up, my sister squealed, but Caroline's face fell. "Oh dear," she said, her voice dripping with fake concern. "Don't you think something with a higher neckline would be more appropriate? We wouldn't want anything distracting from your beautiful face in the photos." My heart sank, but I smiled and agreed to try on more dresses. That night, Andrew texted me, "Mom mentioned the dress shopping. She thinks a higher neckline would photograph better. Just something to consider, babe." These little comments continued, increasing in frequency as the wedding got closer. Andrew would suggest I wear my hair down to cover that thing, or ask if I'd considered those special makeups that cover scars. Each time, I'd feel a little piece of my confidence chip away. One evening, while having dinner at our apartment, Andrew looked up from his phone and said, "Hey, I was thinking, have you considered talking to Dr. Levine about scar revision before the wedding? I know a partner at the firm whose wife had facial scar reduction. Looks amazing now." I put down my fork. "Andrew, we've talked about this. I've already had 2 surgeries when I was younger. The doctors said this is as good as it gets. I'm just saying, there are always new techniques," he shrugged. "Don't you want to look perfect on our big day?" "I thought you loved me the way I am," I said quietly. "I do, babe," he said, reaching for my hand. "I just want you to feel confident." But I was confident until he started making me feel like I shouldn't be. 2 weeks before the wedding, Andrew's parents hosted a rehearsal dinner planning session at their Beacon Hill brownstone. We were all sitting in their lavish living room when Caroline started discussing seating arrangements. And of course, we'll need to make sure Rebecca is seated on the right side of Andrew in all the formal photos, so her good side faces the camera, she said casually, as if I wasn't even in the room. Before I could respond, Andrew laughed and said, "Definitely. I'm marrying Rebecca minus the scar." The room went silent. My future sister-in-law Emma looked mortified. Richard, Andrew's dad, cleared his throat uncomfortably, but Caroline nodded approvingly. Andrew, Emma finally broke the silence. That's a horrible thing to say. What? Andrew looked genuinely confused. It was just a joke. I stood up, my hands shaking. Excuse me, I managed to say before walking out to the garden. Tears streamed down my face as I called an Uber. I couldn't bear to be in that house another minute. Andrew followed me outside. Becca, come on. You're overreacting. It was just a stupid comment. No, Andrew. It wasn't just a comment. It's been a pattern, and I've been ignoring it because I love you. But I can't do this anymore. What are you talking about? His voice rose. You're going to throw away our relationship over one bad joke? It's not one joke. It's the constant reminders that you see me as flawed. That you wish I looked different. That's ridiculous. I proposed to you, didn't I? If I was embarrassed by you, why would I want to marry you? Those words hit me like a truck. Was I just good enough to marry despite my flaw? Was that supposed to make me feel grateful? I think we need to postpone the wedding, I said quietly. His face darkened. You can't be serious. Do you know how much money we've already spent? What people will say. I don't care what people will say, Andrew. I care about marrying someone who loves all of me. Caroline appeared at the door. What's going on? Rebecca, you're being dramatic. Andrew made one little comment. Mom, please, Andrew said, but he didn't defend me. No, she needs to hear this, Caroline continued. In this family, we don't throw tantrums when our feelings get hurt. If you're going to be a Parker, you need thicker skin. The irony of her choice of words wasn't lost on me. I'm sorry, but I'm leaving, I said, seeing my Uber pull up. I need some time to think. If you leave now, don't expect the wedding to happen at all. Andrew called after me. I turned back one last time. Maybe that's for the best. As the car pulled away, my phone exploded with texts from Andrew, ranging from angry to apologetic. But all I could think about was his words. I'm marrying Rebecca minus the scar. The problem was, there is no minus the scar version of me. This scar is part of who I am. And anyone who truly loves me would never want to erase it. The next 3 days were a blur of tears, ignored calls, and sleepless nights. I stayed at my best friend Zoe's apartment, unable to face going back to the condo Andrew and I shared. My phone constantly buzzed with messages, some from Andrew alternating between apologies and accusations, others from Caroline claiming I was ruining her son's life over nothing, and a surprising number from friends and family members who'd heard different versions of what happened. On Tuesday morning, a massive bouquet of white roses arrived at Zoe's door with a card that read, I'm sorry. I love you. Please come home so we can talk. Andrew, are you going to call him? Zoe asked, watching me stare at the flowers. I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to forgive him and move forward. We've built a life together. But another part keeps hearing those words over and over. Which words? Zoe asked, sitting beside me on the couch. I'm marrying Rebecca minus the scar, I repeated, my voice breaking. Like I'm a package deal where he's tolerating the bad part to get the good parts. Zoe put her arm around me. Becca, can I be honest? This isn't the first time Andrew has made comments about your scar. I looked at her, surprised. What do you mean? At your birthday dinner last year, when you went to the bathroom, he mentioned to me how he was researching plastic surgeons who specialize in scar revision. He asked if I could help convince you to do something about it before the wedding. My stomach dropped. He never told me that, because I shut it down immediately. I told him your scar was part of who you are, and if he couldn't accept that, he shouldn't be marrying you. I felt sick. Why didn't you tell me? He apologized and seemed genuinely embarrassed. He promised he'd never bring it up again. I thought he'd learned his lesson. Zoe looked down. I'm sorry, Becca. I should have told you. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the little comments, the suggestions, the ways Andrew had tried to fix me. Had I been ignoring red flags all along? Was I so desperate to be loved that I was willing to accept being made to feel less than? The next morning, I decided to go back to our condo while Andrew was at work to gather some clothes and essentials. When I opened the door, I found Caroline sitting on our couch. "Mrs. Parker," I said, startled. "What are you doing here?" "Rebecca." She stood up, her posture rigid. "We need to talk woman to woman." "I don't think that's a good idea right now." "My son is devastated," she continued as if I hadn't spoken. "He's barely eating, he's distracted at work. All because you've blown a thoughtless comment completely out of proportion." I took a deep breath. "With all due respect, Mrs. Parker, this isn't just about one comment. This is about a pattern of behavior that's made me feel like Andrew is ashamed of how I look." "Oh, please," she scoffed. "Andrew could have any woman he wants. Models have thrown themselves at him. If he was ashamed of you, why would he propose?" Her words stung more than she could know. "That's exactly what I've been asking myself." Caroline's expression softened slightly. "Rebecca, I'm going to be frank with you. In our social circles, appearances matter. Andrew has a career that requires a certain image. He's trying to make partner at his firm. The wives of partners are expected to be flawless at functions and fundraisers." "Flawless," I repeated. "And I'm not." "I didn't say that." But her eyes said everything her mouth didn't. "Mrs. Parker, do you know how I got this scar?" She looked uncomfortable. "Some childhood accident, I believe. I was 12 years old. My brother wandered off during a family camping trip and fell into a ravine. I climbed down to save him and got caught on a jagged rock. 17 stitches later, I had this scar, but my brother was alive. So when you and Andrew talk about my scar like it's an inconvenience for your family photos, you're not just insulting my appearance. You're diminishing one of the proudest moments of my life." Caroline's face paled. "I love your son, Mrs. Parker, but I won't spend my life with someone who makes me feel like I need to apologize for being a hero." After she left, I sat alone in our condo, looking at the framed photos of Andrew and me. Happy moments frozen in time. I wondered if he was always angling me to hide my bad side. In those pictures, 2.my phone rang. It was Emma, Andrew's sister. "Rebecca, are you okay? I've been trying to reach you." "I'm hanging in there," I said, surprised to hear from her. "I wanted you to know that I think you're absolutely right to be upset. What Andrew said was cruel, and what's worse is that neither he nor Mom seems to understand why." "Thank you, Emma. That means a lot. There's something else you should know." She hesitated. "Andrew's been talking to Dad about having you sign a prenup with some unusual clauses." My heart raced. "What kind of clauses?" "Dad refused to draft it, but Andrew went to another lawyer. He wanted language specifying that you would make reasonable efforts to improve your physical appearance as requested, including medical procedures deemed necessary for appropriate presentation at work and social functions." I felt like I couldn't breathe. "Are you serious?" Dad was furious. He told Andrew he was being shallow and controlling. They had a huge fight about it last week. After I hung up with Emma, I sat in stunned silence. The prenup explained so much: the escalating comments, the pressure about the scar as the wedding approached. Andrew wasn't just hoping I'd fix myself. He was planning to make it a legal obligation. That evening, Andrew came home early from work. He looked terrible. Unshaven, dark circles under his eyes. "Rebecca," he breathed, rushing toward me. "You're here. Thank God. Can we please talk?" I nodded, keeping my distance. "I'm so sorry," he said. What I said was thoughtless and cruel. I don't know what came over me. "You know I think you're beautiful, scar and all." "Do I know that, Andrew?" "Because for months now, you've been making comments that suggest otherwise." "That's not true," he protested. "You suggested I wear my hair down at our engagement party to cover that thing. You asked me 3 times about revision surgery. You told the bridal boutique to only pull high-neck dresses. I just want you to feel confident on our wedding day." "No, Andrew. You want me to look the way you want me to look. There's a difference." He ran his hands through his hair in frustration. "Okay, maybe I've been insensitive about it. But is that really worth throwing away our entire relationship? People say thoughtless things all the time in relationships. You forgive and move on." Emma told me about the prenup, I said quietly. The color drained from his face. She had no right. Medical procedures deemed necessary for appropriate presentation? I quoted, "Were you ever going to tell me about that clause, or just surprise me after I was legally bound to you?" "You don't understand," he stammered. "In my world, in my career, in your world," I interrupted. "That's just it, Andrew. I'm not from your world. I never will be. And I don't want to be part of a world where my worth is determined by how presentable I am at cocktail parties." "Becca, please," his voice broke. "I love you. But you don't accept me," I said, tears streaming down my face. "And I can't marry someone who sees me as a project to be fixed." The weeks that followed were some of the hardest of my life. Canceling a wedding is logistically complicated and emotionally devastating. Each phone call to vendors, each returned gift, each explanation to a confused relative felt like ripping open a wound. Andrew alternated between begging for another chance and lashing out in anger. "You'll regret this," he texted one night. "No one will ever love you like I did." His words haunted me because part of me feared he might be right. Would someone else look past my scar? Had I thrown away my one chance at happiness because of my pride? Caroline launched a whisper campaign among our mutual friends, painting me as unstable and ungrateful. Some believed her. Others reached out privately to offer support. Richard, surprisingly, came to see me at the hospital where I work. He waited until my shift ended and approached me in the parking lot. "Rebecca," he called. "Do you have a minute?" I was wary but nodded. "I wanted to apologize," he said, looking genuinely remorseful. Not just for Andrew's behavior, but for my own silence. I should have spoken up when he made that comment, but I didn't. And I've been silent too many times when Caroline has said similar things. "Thank you for saying that," I said, touched by his honesty. "I also wanted you to know that I refused to draft that prenup for a reason. What Andrew was asking for wasn't just unusual, it was controlling and wrong." I told him as much. "I appreciate that." Andrew has struggled with appearances his whole life. Caroline put so much pressure on both our children to be perfect. Emma rebelled against it, but Andrew internalized it. "It doesn't excuse what he did to you, but I want you to know it wasn't personal. It's his own damage." "Maybe so," I said. "But it became my damage too." Richard nodded sadly. "For what it's worth, I think you made the right decision. And I'm sorry our family hurt you." That conversation with Richard was a turning point for me. If Andrew's own father could see the problem, maybe I wasn't overreacting after all. 2 months after the canceled wedding, I was volunteering at a children's hospital event when I met Jason. He was a firefighter who came to visit the kids and brought his therapy dog, a gentle golden retriever named Max. I noticed immediately that Jason had a burn scar that covered much of his left forearm and extended to his hand. "Rock climbing accident?" I asked, nodding toward his arm as we both took a coffee break. He smiled. "No, job hazard. Burning beam fell on me during my first year on the job. Nearly ended my career before it started." "You?" I was surprised by his directness, but also refreshed by it. "Childhood accident. I was rescuing my brother from a ravine." "So you're a hero too," he said simply, his eyes meeting mine with genuine interest. We ended up talking long after the event ended. Not just about scars, but about books and movies, about our jobs and families. He made me laugh for the first time in months. He walked me to my car, he said. "I'd really like to see you again, Rebecca. Just you and me next time." I hesitated, Andrew's words echoing in my mind. "No one will ever love you like I did." "I should tell you," I said, "I just got out of a serious relationship. I'm still dealing with a lot of baggage." Jason smiled. "Everyone's got baggage, Rebecca. The question is whether you want to unpack alone or with company." 6 months later, I ran into Andrew and Caroline at a charity gala I was attending with the hospital staff. I was there with Jason, who'd become an important part of my life, first as a friend, then as something more. Andrew looked shocked to see me, his eyes darting between me and Jason, taking in our clasped hands. "Rebecca," he said stiffly. "You look well." "Thank you," I replied. "I am well." Caroline's lips were pressed in a thin line as she assessed Jason. I could almost see her cataloging his less-than designer suit, his firefighter's build so different from her son's polished attorney physique. "This is Jason," I introduced. "Jason, this is Andrew and his mother, Mrs. Parker." "Nice to meet you," Jason said with genuine warmth, extending his hand, his scarred hand. Without hesitation or shame, Andrew shook it briefly, then made an excuse about seeing someone across the room. Caroline followed, but not before giving me one last look, part confusion, part something that almost resembled respect. "Ex-fiancé?" Jason asked when they were gone. "Yes," I admitted. "The one I told you about." He nodded. "The one who couldn't see past this." He gently traced my scar with his finger, something he'd done many times before, always with reverence rather than disgust. "His loss," Jason said simply, and in that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that I had made the right choice. Later that night, as Jason and I slow danced, I caught a glimpse of us in a mirrored wall. My scar was clearly visible in my off-shoulder gown, the same style Andrew and Caroline had discouraged me from wearing. But instead of feeling self-conscious, I felt beautiful, strong, complete. The scar that Andrew had seen as a flaw to be hidden was, to Jason, just another part of my story. And to me, finally, it was a reminder not of what I had lost, but of what I had survived, including the relationship that had nearly convinced me I wasn't enough exactly as I am. Sometimes the deepest scars aren't the ones you can see. They're the ones left by people who make you believe you need to be different to be loved. Healing those scars is harder, but standing here now, I know it's possible. Because true love doesn't ask you to be flawless. It simply asks you to be yourself. And that, scars and all, is exactly who I intend to be.
What a powerful journey we've just witnessed together. Rebecca's story reminds us that true love isn't about changing someone to fit an ideal image. It's about embracing every part of them, scars and all. That let's take a moment to reflect on what happened here. Rebecca was ready to marry Andrew, a man from an elite Boston family who seemed perfect on paper. But as their wedding approached, his comments about her scar became more frequent and more hurtful. From suggesting she wear her hair down to cover that thing, to secretly adding a clause in their prenup requiring her to undergo cosmetic procedures, Andrew revealed that his love came with conditions. That devastating moment when he said, "I'm marrying Rebecca minus the scar," exposed a truth Rebecca couldn't ignore. Andrew didn't love her completely. He loved a version of her that existed only in his mind. A version without the very scar that told the story of her courage and love for her brother. The most powerful part of this story isn't just Rebecca walking away from a toxic relationship. It's her reclaiming her narrative. That moment when she danced with Jason in her off-shoulder gown, her scar visible to everyone, represents something beautiful about self-acceptance. Sometimes our greatest insecurities are actually our greatest strengths, if only we can see them that way. So, I want to ask you, what scars are you hiding? What parts of yourself have you been taught to apologize for? Would you have had the courage to walk away like Rebecca did? Or would you have given Andrew another chance? This story teaches us that we deserve someone who loves us completely, not despite our scars, but including them. Because those scars are part of our story, and our stories are worth telling without apology or shame. That if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button so others can find it too. Drop a comment below sharing your thoughts or experiences with conditional love. And if you want more powerful relationship stories that make you think, subscribe to Reddit Bit and hit that notification bell. Thanks for watching, and remember, you are worthy of love exactly as you are. No conditions, no exceptions, no revisions necessary. I'll see you in the next video.